Spielberg. It is one of our most scenic, it is one of our most idyllic settings on the Grand Prix calendar. Always one of the favourite stopovers as we return to the Grand Prix of Austria. It is chapter 13 in a story of 2025 which is being dominated by Marc Marquez. He has now taken wins in the last 11 sprints and Grand Prix, and as those Austrian fans are too. With Marco Bezzecchi for the very first time in a Grand Prix, starting from pole position after his brilliance in Q2 yesterday. Fourth at the checkered flag in the sprint, recovering from a pretty average Friday when he was down in 18th place. 28 laps then will be underway in, what, about 40 minutes time here in the spectacular Styria Mountains. Matt Burton-Lewis Sotheby in the commentary box with Jack Appleyard down in pit lane. Some stars of the past we were mouthing at there in our commentary box position just above the main grandstand, Lewis, but now it's all about the stars of the present and the future as Marc Marquez looks for a first ever Grand Prix success here in Austria.
Oh boy, was Marco Bezzecchi a star yesterday, of course. Marco Bezzecchi, winner of GP 1000 a couple of years ago at Le Mans. Can he win the 1000 in the very top class here today? Well, it would be against the run of play given Aprilia's historical record over here. You wouldn't say it's necessarily Aprilia's strongest track on the calendar, and it looked it on Friday when, of course, Bezzecchi and his team and Jorge Martin were both outside the top 10. Bezzecchi, though, not only getting out of Q1, but going all the way to P1 by the time qualifying was concluded on Saturday morning. But he has the top three in the World Championship, the Ducati trio of Marc Marquez, Alex Marquez and Pecco Bagnaia right on his shoulder.
Marco Bezzecchi, one of the last riders to actually finish ahead of Marc Marquez in any sprint or Grand Prix shape. Here is the Legends Parade. You can see there Luca Cadalora in the distinctive red and white Yamaha leathers. 250cc world champion back in the day. Of course, not that long ago, he was a rider coach and working closely with Valentino Rossi. Dani Pedrosa is here as well. I believe Dani's been having a few laps on Hiroshi Oyama's 250cc two-stroke. Great to hear some good old-fashioned two-strokes zinging around the Red Bull ring. A proper throwback. That was all to do with the start of KTM's Grand Prix journey, wasn't it? Now, in the present, well, they have got another superstar on their books. Pedro Acosta is in great form coming into this Grand Prix of Austria. Massive home weekend, of course, for Red Bull and for KTM. Well, he was third over the line in the sprint yesterday. Really threatened to get his hooks into the Marquez brothers directly ahead of him on circuit, but it is now 3 successive podiums for Acosta, who is being helped by some significant KTM upgrades that have filtered through out of the summer break. We finally have, we've had to wait a long time, a fast, happy and smiling Pedro Acosta.
Yeah, some of the upgrades, in particular to the bike, the aero upgrade, something Pedro Acosta has been calling for quite some time. All the way back to the Aragon test, he's been asking for that particular performance upgrade. He now finally has it, and Pedro Acosta hitting form at just the right moment from a KTM point of view with their home Grand Prix here today. Well, Pecco Bagnaia, boy, does he feel like he's away from home right now, having struggled so badly in the sprint yesterday, although he was certainly very clear in his mind that the circumstances were beyond his control. But no points once again out of a Tito sprint for Pecco Bagnaia. We saw him shaking his head more than we saw him making overtakes. It all began with this disastrous start.
That was scary. The more you look at that, the scarier it gets, particularly not just for Bagnaia, but 4 riders behind him who really had to check up cat-like reactions, I should say. I'll put my teeth back in, for the likes of Morbidelli, Bastianini, Mir and Marini. That was really scary stuff off the line. And Bagnaia had rear tyre problems throughout the sprint. He said he felt there was an issue on the warm-up lap. This was where he ran off in the braking zone up the hill into the first corner. It was a shocking Saturday for Bagnaia. Let's look at this. No stability whatsoever on the rear. It was like he had a square tyre in the back of that factory Ducati. A big shake of the head, and ultimately he called it a day. He said no sense in continuing to take big risks when that Ducati underneath him was practically unrideable. And that's what it means. That was the disconsolate figure of Bagnaia, barely able to contain his disappointment inside the factory Ducati garage. Are there going to be any crumbs of comfort today for the 28-year-old Italian? He's not finished lower than second in the last 4 Grand Prix here at the Red Bull Ring. He's won the last 3. He does start from the front row in 3rd place. There's a big ask for him to get on par and beat the Marquez brothers once again over the full 28-lap distance.
What will help Pecco Bagnaia is that one of the Marquez brothers in question does have a long lap penalty to serve. You just saw him, Alex Marquez, as we look at some seriously illustrious MotoGP company legends of the past, who I'm sure could pretty much compete at the present. Casey Stoner and Dani Pedrosa here on your screens, 2 of the very best to ever put their leg over a Grand Prix motorcycle.
Career-long rivals, weren't they, those two, in 125s, 250s, and eventually as teammates in Repsol Honda in MotoGP. Can you imagine a comparable lineup to that in the modern day? I guess Bagnaia and Marquez, Pedrosa and Casey Stoner was just a mouth-watering lineup back in the day. Unfortunately, a little bit of sad news to bring you, housekeeping news. We are missing Maverick Vinales once again from this Austrian Grand Prix. Pain in his left shoulder. This is all, of course, a legacy of his Q2 crash in the wet conditions in the Sachsenring a few weeks ago. Missed the sprint and the race action in Germany. Missed the race action also in the Grand Prix of Czechia. Bravely tried to return to action just 5 weeks into what is going to be a 16-week painstaking rehab for the Spaniard. Unfortunately, Vinales withdrawing yesterday from the remainder of this Grand Prix of Austria, and also confirming he will not be on the RC16 next time out in Hungary. So a bit of a tough time, a tough break as far as Top Gun is concerned. You'd imagine Pol Espargaro might be seconded into action once again next time out at Balaton.
Here's a rider who certainly knows how to get through some injury hell. Boy, is the first half of this year been tough for Jorge Martin, but he's now getting that light at the end of the tunnel that he's been striving and training so hard for over recent weeks and months, and we're starting to see Jorge Martin show his undoubted class. Qualified down in 14th place, but a fine sprint performance. What will have particularly impressed and pleased him was his performance at the end of the sprint, giving another lap yesterday, and he'd have taken that final World Championship points away from Johann Zarco. He is only going to get stronger in the second half of this season. Can he get himself into that top 10 battle over the 28 laps today?
Superb in his Grand Prix return in Brno before the summer break, wasn't he, Martin? 7th at the checkered flag, which would have felt like a victory. We saw the sort of post-race scenes outside the factory of Aprilia garage, what it meant to his crew, to Aprilia and to Martin himself. Well, you've got to go all the way back to his 3rd place in the British Grand Prix at Silverstone for the last time Marc Marquez really saw anybody's rear tyre for a prolonged period. Double wins in Aragon, Mugello, Assen, Sachsenring and in Brno last time out, and he's got half the job done already here so far in Austria. Let's find out shortly whether he can complete yet another double victory. Yesterday in that 14-lap sprint, we should really have been talking about another stellar ride, another top performance by Trackhouse Aprilia's Ralph Fernandez, because he was running in a superb 5th. Top 6 once again beckoned for Fernandez before he had an unfortunate issue with the rear ride height device. Looks like he's going to be in the mix for the top 6 once again this afternoon. Let's get the thoughts of his boss, Davide Privia, who joins Jack.
Yeah, it's a brilliant performance yesterday from Raul until, as you say, the ride height device unfortunately robbed him of a top 5, and it would have continued a streak, Davide, of great performances and great weekends. It seems at long last we're starting to see the talents that we all knew Raul had finally been showcased in MotoGP.
Okay, we just, I mean, we are working, okay, work in progress, but yeah, this is what we always expected from him.